and a slam jam.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, the Wombo Combo. Another week here to talk plenty of Dota 2 and the competitive scene focus, of course, and excited to be here as always. I'm breakycpk and joined by my co-host, BSJ. How's another week for you going, buddy?
It's going good. Just been apartment searching. I'm going to be kind of sort of moving to New York, I guess you could say. At least like we're doing the whole testing the waters, moving together play here. See how it goes. It's a huge move for me. Obviously, I'm from the West Coast, but there's just too many beneficial factors, not only for potentially my relationship, but also my job. So I'm just like, well, at this point, you know, the hours are better for streaming, you know, all this kind of stuff. The ping's way better for playing. It's weird, man. So I've been going through a lot of stuff. You know, yeah. I'm like, I get off my stream and I'm like, I'm used to having my day be done. You know, that's the biggest thing for me. And right now, that's just like not the case at all. So it's just kind of like my day almost starts like right when my stream ends. So it's getting that vibe where my stream's not actually my work anymore. All my other stuff that I have to make sure gets done is. So it's kind of funny the last week or two.
Well, you're going through that. My life is also going through a little bit interesting, a rough time, I guess you could say right now. My almost 2.5-year-old, we're doing potty training. Actually, so yeah, talk about a rough life.
With that last year, yeah.
Right? Yeah, no, it's an interesting time to say the least. No, but no complaints here. Ultimately, you know, a lot of things are going good, of course. But yeah, go New York. I mean, New York's an interesting place to be moving to right now, especially with obviously the situation. But hey,
yeah, it's a bit weird, obviously, but sad. I'm not trying to be ignorant, but like you don't really feel it. Like you have to go outside in a mask, but like. I've been in New York when there wasn't this going on, and the sheer volume of people outside is like 15% of what it normally is. Like, there's just nobody outside. So I'm like staying safe. You know, we're trying to be taking precautions. Like, every time I get back, I wash my hands and all that kind of stuff. But it's just like, it doesn't feel much different to me because 90% of the day I'm just sitting in here talking to my viewers or whatever, talking to you, you know. Doing my normal thing. So it's a bit long in that way, but it's also like you get better deals right now because nobody wants to rent. So it's like, you know, there's positive and negatives to both, but try to be careful, but at the same time, to me, I don't feel it that much. So.
All right. Well, enough about you, BSJ. We got plenty of Dota 2 to taking up the show here. Speaking of that, actually, we are going to be joined by a special guest. It's been a little bit since we've had a guest on, so we're going to be joined by Noxville, of course, a statistician amongst many other things within the Dota 2 community. So excited to have him on to talk a couple of topics, including the Newbee situation. If you haven't heard, there's a little bit of drama there. We'll discuss obviously everything going on there, and we'll also get his thoughts on the whole DMCA situation as well, as we talked about last week. So, but before we have him on, we figured we would start with the WePlay event. The top 3, of course, is where we left off last week. We gave our predictions, Ethan, and ultimately it played out. And, well, you know, it's interesting, I guess is one way to put it, where it didn't have maybe the finals matchup that I definitely expected, but I can't say. You know, we've been down this road before. VP Prodigy certainly looked like the better team in this series against Team Liquid, and this is obviously a team that's had I don't want to say a Cinderella story necessarily. Obviously, good players that we've known of before, but certainly not a team we expect to see in the grand finals of the WePlay event. So VP Prodigy defeating Liquid to face off against Secret, and then it did go 3-0 favoring Secret in those grand finals in fairly decisive victories, maybe outside of that game 1, but game 2 and 3 especially, pretty one-sided, Secret winning it all. But that's how it played out. So your thoughts, BSJ, on how it all went?
I emphasized this last week, and I made my bets jokingly saying Team Liquid was going to 2-0 VP Prodigy based on like the rest of this bracket. All I see is 2-0s. I see one series where a team took a game. Like it was the 2-1 of Liquid over Alliance. Every other series was 2-0 or 3-0 in the final. I don't really understand that. Like VP Prodigy, they were 6-0 against every team except for Secret, who they're 0-5 against. You know, so clearly, either it's just this tournament where people online got the momentum, or maybe lost motivation. But I would almost say like this patch almost seems like maybe there's a lot of rock, paper, scissors going on where like certain strategies are just really good against others or whatever. So these teams like match up really well against certain teams, but match up very poorly against others. It just seemed like every time I watched a game, it was just like one team had the clear upper hand for whatever reason. Like it was different every single game, but I'm just like looking at them like every series, just 2-0, 2-0. Team Secret obviously took it convincingly, but VP Prodigy, they're the like chicken fighters of ESL, you know, the chicken fighters in the Viking GG of ESL, just kind of coming out of nowhere. Obviously not unknown players, but relatively, you know, since they were like, since we know the names, but since nobody, including myself, had heard of VP Prodigy, it's just kind of cool. So
yeah, absolutely. And of course, now that Chicken Fighters team, now known as NIP, of course, participating in this event, and they themselves made it to the second round of the lower bracket. So solid follow-up there to their ESL event that they had. But yeah, you kind of wonder, I mean, the VP Prodigy squad, as far as the being under the VP banner, there are, I believe ESL specifically, you know, it does have that rule stating you cannot have the same team from the same organization. So it is going to be interesting to see how that plays out. I know OGC actually ran into the issue with the previous event there. So if they do keep that name, I guess, moving forward as more events continue to happen, as we hope for, of course, in the near future, that, you know, we'll see if another banner comes about. But again, making it to the finals, nothing to be ashamed of, absolutely. But yeah, the top dogs, Team Secret, it's not only are they one of the expected top teams right now in the world still, there's obviously nothing to say right there, but you look at a couple of these other teams like OG and EG, for example, they are having to play either with some ringers or a situation like OG playing with Sumail from North America, so they're dealing with some latency where Team Secret's just good to go. You know, they got their 5-man roster, and it really is no surprise to see them continuing to dominate despite the times we are in. So you know, big victory for them. I did pull up Dota Buff as well, just to take a quick glance to see how the event played out when it came to heroes and everything. I believe this might include Division 2 as well. Of course, that's that subdivision that took place as well. And then the top 2 teams qualify for the next season of this WePlay League right here. But so take it how you will, but Grimstroke was the top played hero by a fair amount, 81 matches overall, 62 being the next in line on top of that. But yeah, Grimstroke, a 51% win percentage, being the most played. And then up from there, a couple of standouts. Mars had a 64% win percentage and being a top 10 picked hero. So he was certainly a king of the offlane.
That's surprising to me, to be honest with you. Like I thought that hero got pretty significantly nerfed, and I've been seeing it feel underwhelming in all the pubs I've been playing. So that statistic alone is a bit weird to me, but I could see in competitive, maybe his kit's still just really powerful. Maybe that's just what it is. Like his ult's just such a huge threat to play around.
Sure. Yeah, I know Boxy actually, you know, plays quite a bit for Liquid, and again, despite finishing third place, that's still a solid finish, and so they had some pretty good success, and I'm sure part of that right there. Going down a little bit further, you know, funny enough, actually, another one, maybe like the 14th most played, I guess, in that range. Bristleback, 37 matches, a 29% win percentage.
Ooh.
It's always interesting seeing that those numbers, and you're like, okay, maybe overplayed.
That doesn't surprise me, though, okay? So I was playing Bristleback last patch, and I was like, wow, this hero, like, he's a hero I like to test out in a lot of patches where I think he's okay, and he felt just like, I was like, wow, that, like, he just out of nowhere feels really powerful. And then I watch, and then I play on this patch, right? And there were games where I was like 10-0, and then the opponent carry just got a Scotty, and I was like, now what? Now what? And I was like, you know, people were saying like the new Scotty, maybe it's just completely broken and everything. I think it might be one of the biggest changes of the patch that I've seen play out. I thought it was a reasonably big deal, but there's like some heroes, maybe like Necro, who like they can Ghost Shroud, you know, he can avoid the Scotty hits all the time. But like when you're dealing with a Bristle, if you get Scotty, then you're trying to sustain with your, you know, Vanguard, Abyssal Blade, whatever. You're just gonna die. like you can't move, you can't attack, and you don't heal. So I just feel like a lot of games are pretty reliably going later now, which also hurts heroes like Bristleback. They've done a much better job, I think, with the pace of the game. The overall like neutral item time shifts and all the changes to like towers and all that kind of stuff, like gold and lane. I think the game is well balanced with how long the games go, and since more games are going longer, heroes like Bristleback that are really mid game heavy kind of fell off. So that makes a lot of sense to me, and I think it says a lot about the meta too. So I don't want to go too much into that, but make sure we don't delay our guests here too much.
Yeah, I was actually just about to say. I think we're getting to that point where we got a guest. Let's be nice. Let's look to bring him on as far as talk some juicier topics, I guess you could say. So once again, secret winning it all is the gist of it. As far as WePlay event, no surprises there. VP Prodigy certainly a big finish for them, finishing as runner-up Liquid in third. So, but that will lead us into our next topic. And again, we'll wait for Noxville to join us before we officially get this going right here. But man, oh man, talk about news that did not expect to wake up to, to say the least. It's just one of those, you open up your timeline as my day starts. I open up Twitter, open up Reddit, whatever, go through the daily routine. And I see this thing about Newbee, and I'm like, I have to do kind of double take. Okay, so what is this about? Like, something about match fixing potentially. And well, sure enough, it was confirmed that Newbee is actually banned from participating in IMBA TV events, specifically as the title goes here, but they're no longer a member of the CDA, which is the Chinese Dota League Association, basically over there in China, that represents all the top teams pretty much for the most part. And then on top of that, the evidence that was viewed upon and determined this outcome for this current Newbee roster was actually sent to Valve. So to be clear, they're not banned from Valve events technically right now. This is just the China-focused events currently. However, being that that's what happened and the evidence that has been given, it's a safe assumption that we're going to be seeing a point in the near future that Valve will make an announcement on that. And you got to assume it's going to be a lifetime ban for the 5 players that fill that roster. So, looks like we're still waiting for Noxville to come on here. But oh, he's here. Oh, hey, buddy, you there? How's it going?
Yeah, very good.
Do you got a webcam by chance? Want to pop that on? Is it on? Discord changed recently, so.
Yeah, they rolled out the video to everyone, so you don't have to.
I see him on video right now.
Do you not see him? I see him. No.
Oh, I see him right now.
Yeah, I was like waiting for him to join this whole time and I didn't see it, but okay.
Maybe like change webcam, maybe.
No. I see you on the pop out, so I just need to figure out how to. Oh, wait, no, I clicked something bad. All right, editing issues.
First try.
Yeah, first try, I guess. God, it's like they had a patch recently on Discord, I swear, that makes it so the video actually, it's like now I have it focusing just on Noxville, so now BSJ is gone.
That nothing of value was lost.
Right, yeah. Anyways, Noxville, so the news on Newbee, we'll just let you talk about this in the meantime. Like I was saying with BSJ, so I guess you were on and listening to that as well. What the hell was your reaction when you heard about this whole Newbee situation?
I was very, very not surprised that the team got banned. I was just surprised it was Newbee, because there's been a history of allegations of match fixing. It's very hard to prove match fixing. Even in the most famous case of match fixing in Dota, Solo, he admitted to it. The most famous case in Counter-Strike, they found evidence of it because they were able to liaise with CSGO lounge admins, and they got logs, and they worked out which users bet and how much, and they were able to work out IPs and stuff. But when it comes to all other forms of match fixing, unless you admit to it, it's very, very difficult to be 100% sure. Mm-hmm. So I was very surprised that Newbee as an organization would be so foolish to kind of let that one out the bag. But one has to say, in the wise words of Kyle and Jawet, they saw it coming. Everyone saw it coming.
Yeah, and it's kind of a follow-up to that. We'd almost be naive, I feel like, and we can go further into this a little bit later on too, but we'd almost be naive to act like match fixing doesn't happen anymore. It is, as you're stating there, Noxville, it's one of those things, it is very hard to prove. You certainly need hard evidence. Now, to say it's happening with tier 1 teams, I think that's the biggest thing, right? Where the fact Newbee is no small organization. This is obviously a TI winning organization. They player on the team, of course, winning TI in Faith. Moogie as the runner-up team for TI 7. Two of these players that are now banned officially from these Chinese events. So that's, I think, the biggest takeaway from this. Like, okay, yeah, maybe match fixing tier 3, 2 choosing whatever in some regions or just whatever's going on there. But holy crap! I mean, this is Newbee we're talking about, guys.
I just want to say, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say Newbee aren't the same. Like they have big names, but they haven't been like they're not like the Newbee from previous times. Like even within the Chinese pecking order, they are like definitely not top 5, and debatably maybe not top 8 before the scandal hits. And there's only so many slots that go to these international events. So if you're only playing local events, you're only getting these mediocre results, then it becomes very difficult for you to make a super reliable salary that some of these stars are used to. You think, like you said, they have Faith, they have Moogie. These are players who've earned huge amounts of money, and now they're not a really big contender within China, not a big contender in the world. So part of me is like 1% compassionate towards them, but for the most part, they match fix, so they should just get screwed.
A lot of people don't actually remember this, but I was on Enemy GG like 5 years ago, and I was actually against Elite Wolves, some of the SA players that got permanently banned for match fixing. I was the other team. I was in the game when they got banned. So, like I can tell you from inside of a game, albeit difficult to prove, you can feel when, like, it's just like in a pub. You can feel when your teammate isn't trying to win. You can feel when the opponent isn't trying to win. And that's why it's such a frustrating topic, because a lot of people, they're doing it, like, especially if you're playing the game itself. And it's a really good point you make that this type of stuff, like, to come to that, like, 100% confirmed conclusion that they have cheated or have fixed the match, that's the hardest part. And for me, you said like they deserve to be banned. Like you have a bit of sympathy, but at the end of the day, they deserve punishment. I'm like a zero tolerance kind of person with this kind of stuff. Like I think the best thing about Dota, the most enjoyable thing about anything competitive, it's kind of like playing poker for no money. Nobody cares. Like if there's nothing on the line, it's like if I watch a Dota game, I want to know that these guys are giving it their absolute all. And like the purity of the game itself, the beauty of the game is that people are 100% trying. If the guy loses, it's because the other team was just better at that given moment. There's no other reason. There's no bullshit. Like that's the beauty of the game.
College sports.
Yes, and I think that anything that jeopardizes that in any form of a competition, whether that's regular sport, whether that's esports, is like the biggest threat to the game, the industry itself. Like I think it's disastrous to let anything go by. Like I think that's just like I think lifetime ban is the only solution. Like you have to treat these people like they have, single-handedly tried to take your game out of existence. Like I think it is the worst thing you can do. So I have no sympathy at all. I if you're in a rough spot financially in your life, I can respect that, like honestly, but if you're on a team of Newbee's caliber, I assume you have some decent salary, and like some people get caught up in shit, but this isn't new, right? You guys have mentioned this has happened in history of sports and esports. There's what do you call that? Precedent. There's precedent to this, right? Like this isn't new, and you have no excuses. It's not that you didn't know. It's not that you thought it might not be that bad. You know exactly what you're doing when you do this, and you can tell it triggers me. I'm sure. I'm sure you both can tell I'm triggered, but. When I saw the news, like I was just like you. I'm like, I can't believe it's like it's not surprising when I hear like Elite Wolves, a team I've barely ever heard of. Yeah. But then when I hear it from a team that like has been an organization at least that's been in numerous TIs, and that to me is just mind-boggling.
Yeah, it is. There is that fine line because I am with you there, Noxville. That I've thought it in the past. Said in the past, Van and Smash specifically with the whole the Elite Wolf situation. Younger guys to an extent, their financial situation maybe not the best at the time. it's understandable how somebody can get trapped up in this idea of somebody coming to you, be like, hey, you want to earn some money on the side. You think it's foolproof, nobody's going to figure out. But but
the moment you do it, you've crossed the line, and you're just done. You're completely done. I mean, it's also DDZ. It's like such a talented player. It happened to him in the whole Arrow gaming situation. Like he was like, his tinker was like unbelievable. Like people thought he was cheating. Normally when that happens, the person is either cheating or they're really fucking good. And yeah, I just couldn't believe that so many people would just get caught in such a way. But I mean, that's the thing also is no one's 100% sure everyone on Newbee was in on it. Like BSJ said, when you're playing against it, it's actually very easy to detect. Like you can feel that there's something a bit weird, but you can't always put your finger on it. You can't always say, this person or this whole team. There was another case in China that happened 2 years ago, which was in a lower division. It was Rock Gaming versus Ulrika in DSPL, which is like the second tier of DPL. And in that investigation, it happened by Mars TV. Only 3 players of Rock and 2 from Ulrika were banned, and for life, and the other 2 were given a 2-year ban. And that actually, it's quite funny, is like right around now, like a couple of weeks ago, was the like time in which their 2-year ban would be revisited. So I wonder what's going to happen to them given the current information. But yeah, that's another case 2 years ago that happened, and they were kind of well known, not Newbee level, but they were like doing mediocre to okay in the second tier of Chinese Dota. So not too far away, if you think about it.
Yeah. So just to be clear as well, so you're talking about as far as, I remember seeing a post, again, at the time it was maybe like 3 months ago or so, about somebody calling them out in a Reddit post, somebody calling out the possibility that something was fishy here, etc. I have a post up right now. It was Avon Girls is the other team. Do we have
that was in the Starlight Minor, and there was no outcome. That was the one Zhao 8 said, if this is not match fixed, I will eat poop on my stream. That's like the famous one.
So do we have confirmation on what it was? If this was it or if it's something else? I mean, I've looked at this evidence, and obviously a lot in Chinese, so I don't know what to make of it in that sense. But I don't know.
Yeah, that kind of raises the secondary points in this whole thing. Is like, who's doing the investigation? Do we trust them? Like, will this ban carry on in other events? Because the CDA is like a Chinese cartel that controls which Chinese teams do or don't play in the top league of tournaments. And it was recently formed. Like there was like a partnership with like a CDA and DPL to form one league with all the teams in during the Corona issue. I think it was only formed officially a couple of weeks or months ago. But there's been like a WPC ACE, which is like the overall ACE is like the overarching body that handles Dota in China. Like, who is this body compared to Valve? Like, they're not the publisher. They're not Perfect World appointed. Like, who are they?
Yeah, it's that's almost another discussion again to be had, but it does bring up, like, I guess the next kind of question, the topic of, again, this is just CDA right now. They're banned from their events, etc. But the evidence has been sent to Valve. You know, what is Valve going to do with that? So you almost got to kind of want it to that point, Noxville. That's actually interesting. Again, this is all theorizing and like kind of just wondering about possibilities. But maybe is it possible that there's some bias against Newbee from this said organization with the CDA that led to this quote-unquote investigation and this evidence being brought up and then eventually this ban? Now, obviously, if they have evidence that is you cannot dispute, then of course the punishment is worthy, but you do got to wonder, is that at least a possibility out there? And how is Valve going to take this in now and go about taking care of the situation? Because this is very fragile for them. We're talking about a previous TI winner. This is going to be a black eye on Dota 2 and Valve as well if they ultimately have to come to this conclusion.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best ways of being able to maybe not conclusively 100% prove, but prove beyond a reasonable doubt when match fixing occurs is looking at how the benefits occurs, and that's primarily through gambling. So one of the ways in which match fixing alerts have been generated in the past has been where reliable international bookmakers collect evidence on bets, and they're able to see like a trend that is completely wild, like in the same way that you would detect credit card fraud. You see these wild anomalies on betting pattern by specific people in specific unusual circumstances, and they happen to get it all right. And over a large enough sample or certain circumstances, this has triggered alerts before, which have been sent to Valve saying, "Hey, it's probable that there was match fixing in this tournament." And this is, when I say this tournament, I mean like every type of tournament, tier 1 tournaments. We have the Avangirl situation is like the only one that's like super well known, beyond the scripting circumstance, which is not betting related. But yeah, there've been a variety of situations where reports, quote unquote, have been sent to Valve, and basically there's been no action. Yeah. So either the data isn't conclusive enough, or Valve is unwilling to look at conclusive or relatively conclusive data and make an actual decision, because it, as you say, creates this like black eye effect on Dota 2 as a whole.
It's just, I'm trying to think of like the possible scenario here that Valve comes back and is like, we're not banning them. You don't have enough evidence. And then it's like, wait a second. So they're banned from CDA, yet they're not banned from Valve. How will that look? Like, how will that work? So it's that it really is going to be something to see how Valve goes about this. Let's be frank, it is Valve we're talking about, and that almost will segue us into our next topic shortly here. But they are not known for being very quick and, being very open as far as what they're thinking or what's going on behind the scenes. So, yeah, there's so many possibilities.
So one thing to also note is that not in the case of individual team match fixing, but in terms of tournaments in which there are match fixing people involved, one has to have good respect for Wikipedia, who now, like, before they even list a tournament that's like, like a minor tournament, or, is it professional, isn't it professional? They're actually doing like tournament vetting to make sure that all of the information that they represent on their site is of like a legitimate tournament. So they have teams that are highly suspected of match fixing, or teams which, like, there was one tournament I remember seeing an argument where the previous season had 15 players playing for one team. They just bring in ringers every time they won. So it's like impossible to predict what's going to happen, and they're just disguising the match odds every time. Like they played one match had like a 3K player playing mid, and then it completely disguises the facade of this like lying about who's playing, and is it match fixing, or are they just bringing in bad people to play? That I have big respect for Wikipedia just saying, nope. If you want to have
your event, I've never even heard of that, but that's next level shit, man.
It's mostly tier 3 tournaments, and it's mostly in the regions where there's like a relatively big gambling culture and little regulation. So the ones I've seen recently, I'm not trying to like name call anything. I mean, NA Dota's dead. But it's mostly SCA, China, and CIS, where I've seen tournaments listed in the last while, and just, nope, we're not going to list your tournaments. If you want us to list your tournament, we want Steam IDs of all the players. We want the rosters. We want to see your rules. We want to make sure there's no like sneaky way you're just going to bring in another team. So yeah, I think it's been a very reasonable situation that they're doing in fighting this, combating this.
Yeah, no, that's actually really good to hear. So, props to
and also like bookmakers rely on people like Wikipedia as like a neutral reference site. So it's like not being able to advertise for your site in many.
Yeah, no, Wikipedia is obviously, we would all agree, I'm sure, is an amazing resource to have. For I know when I came into the scene 3.5 years ago or so, I was trying to become a commentator in Dota 2. It's the first place to start. I'm like, holy crap, there's all this information that's here. I can catch up so easily and just see every day matches going on, etc. I can see whose birthday it is today if I really cared about that. So, Wikipedia is great for that.
What's my birthday, Berkey?
I mean, I could look it up right now if you really want it.
That's the point. You can just look it up.
Exactly. Anyway, so yeah, again, this Newbee situation, it's obviously this is not the last time we're going to talk about it, because hopefully sooner than later we'll hear development on it, but we'll have to wait and see what Valve concludes on with it. So let's move on to the next topic that I wanted to bring up once again, have you on Noxville. I know that you had some opinions on this as well. The DMCA situation that took place a week or so ago with WePlay, of course. And BSJ and I, we had our own discussion on last week's show, actually, about his day or so after it happened live there. But a little bit more time has passed. Anyways, point is, the DMCA happened, and now it brought up once again, and every couple of years, every year or so, we go through this. Obviously, BSJ is very familiar with it too. But what were your thoughts on WePlay throwing out the DMCA, and any right there? Or what about this whole situation?
Well, I think this is actually a pretty simple case. They definitely shouldn't have DMCA'd. Valve were quite clear that even if people are infringing on or breaking the rules, breaking the law, then it doesn't matter. Valve are the only ones who will issue DMCAs. So WePlay ignored that, and they DMCA'd this person. And I think what was kind of weird was it seemed quite malicious. Like, there were multiple people who were doing it. But the person they went after was like this guy with a pretty small following who they thought was like so small that they could bully and get away with it, but big enough that they went through the effort of filling in the DMCA form. So they lost a lot of respect in my eyes for doing that. I actually never had heard of this guy before, and in the end I was just like, for this guy, he's earning money through his videos, he's doing commentary, he's casting for a language which has got, relatively few coverage options, and he doesn't have like 50 different big streamers. And he seems to be a pretty liked person. Like, spoke to some of my friends in South America, and they said, yeah, this guy's a really nice guy. So it's also like, not his, I don't know if his primary income, but he does earn money on his YouTube videos that he posts later. So it's like significant income for him. And he just loses that for a couple of days because of them. So no respect for WePlay. Kind of dicks.
One way to put it, sure. Yeah, it's as much good as they done for the scene. Again, as I said last week, this was certainly something where you're kind of like, really, guys, that's pretty messed up. Because no matter what you think about the ruling, it is the rule according to Valve. So to go out of your way to do that, absolutely the wrong move on their part. So that does lead us into the next part, though, on, okay, whether or not, yeah, obviously we all know that was wrong of them. What does Valve do now? They're going to revisit this once again, maybe? I mean, we think they are because of everything, the stick that was brought up. How do you feel about the situation, Noxville? You've worked behind the scenes yourselves. You've been there with TOs and know what they're going through. Do you think that it needs to be reevaluated?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is kind of like one of those everyone has an opinion type of situations. I immediately discount the tournament organizers who would be crying about this, because for them, they're like obviously fighting for more money. They want more money, capitalism, haha. And then at the same time, you have streamers who, for them, they're claiming that they providing massively to the scene, which in many cases they are, totally. But they're also claiming that them watching a tournament is not stealing any viewers. Like, no viewers are leaving the tournament to watch them. But if that's the case, why don't they just stream their own games? If they're literally saying it doesn't matter what they stream, it makes no difference, then they should just stream their own games. They should just play pubs. They can't have it both ways. Like, it's irrational to have both views at the same time, that they are doing nothing bad, but they're also doing it because they want to do it. And yeah, so I think that the streamer's perspective is also just outright skewed. I personally think that I personally know that tournament organizers don't make a lot of money. A lot of them have gone bankrupt. A lot of them have gone bankrupt owing me money. But for the most part, I think, yeah, tournament organizers get a pretty harsh opinion and view from the community, and most of them don't make a lot of money. And they're risking a lot of money to be involved in Dota 2. And they want to make long-term goals out of this. And those are the people we should be incentivizing to stay in the scene.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I guess one almost to play devil's advocate on that, and my personal opinion too, is that the idea that, TOs are going to be leaving the scene because of this current situation and how it stands, where anyone's allowed to cast and stream the games or whatever, haven't we been saying that? I mean, this has been a feature in the game since really the beginning, 5+ years or so, and yet here we still are having TOs heavily involved, and one could argue the scene is as healthy as it's ever been. Obviously, the current situation is definitely making it a little bit awkward, but our last TI, for example, we had yet again the biggest prize pool, despite people suggesting that, it's finally going to go down, etc. So is it really something where we need to be here worried as a community that, TOs are going to leave us? What is your thought?
I think, obviously from the community perspective, it's like the same rationale as if there was a website that had unlimited movies. You're like, I don't care about the legality. I don't care about whether the people who run the site go bankrupt or whether the studios go bankrupt. Screw those fat cats. I'm getting to watch Pirates of the Caribbean or whatever. It's kind of a selfish perspective by a lot of the people. we can talk about some of the big TOs. MLG left Dota 2 very early on, just didn't find it sustainable. Who else is super big? Valve obviously makes profit on their big events, but that's because they have crowdfunding to supply the. I would think, ESL, I would think has a really good sales department. I would think that they make a small profit or break even on some events like Mumbai. I would think they probably made a loss because of the time zone and the teams pulling out so close to it. Starladder, there's been reported rumors of them being in huge financial problems in the past. DreamHack's similar to ESL because they're both owned by MTG, so they have huge financial backing to support them. So even if they lose money on events, they're kept as a huge asset. But ESL and DreamHack, but mostly ESL, went through multiple restructurings of staff to try and become more profitable because that's what their owner MTG said. Who else is there? There's a lot of new companies coming in that are branded. This Gamers Without Borders. This is a bad example, but I'm just going to say anyway. Gamers Without Borders was produced by ESL. So it was an ESL branded event, but it's separate. Epicenter lost let's say $1 million or something on their first tournament. They were bringing cats in so that the players who wanted to pet a cat could pet a cat.
I didn't hear about that. Whoa.
Yeah, there was wild stuff. Whatever you want, we'll bring it in. We'll do it. And apparently they lost, from what I heard, close on $1 million. And the next event was a lot. They cut back. They changed a lot of their team, and they wanted to keep it a lot more profitable. A lot of people, I think I said this in a Reddit comment. There's only a few types of people left in the Dota scene. There's the TOs who are super passionate. So they're willing to operate an event even at a loss, like Captain's Draft or Midas Mode or something like that. They just care about the community and they care about the game. So they're willing to do this out of their own love and passion for the game. Then there's the TOs who have got good backing and they want to just invest and hope that the money comes back to them. And unfortunately, sometimes this just doesn't work out. GESC, just whoo, crash. And then there's other tournament organizers who've got backing and they've got, they're big companies and they're just totally okay with it. ESLs, DreamHack. I would say there's a few tournament organizers you might recognize who make a profit and they do a very good job at keeping their costs down. But for even those people, PGL, does a brilliant job. The production value they provide, there's a reason that Valve has partnered with them a few years ago to produce in-game for TI and the majors. They do such a good job. But, they're not making 20% profit on their investment of money they're putting in. They're making a reasonable, smallish amount, and they're just letting the system grow. Not many people can do that.
Yeah.
And, in summary, a lot of tournament organizers would love to get involved in Dota 2 and would have a long time ago if the scene is different. And that's what people aren't measuring. When they're just saying, oh, well, we don't see tournament organizers leaving. It's well, how many have you seen that join?
Fair. That's fair. The end situation here, in my mind, I see it can go one of two ways. Either Valve flat out says, no, we're standing by the rule we made 2 years ago with the same situation. They're able to cast it as long as they follow these guidelines, stop DMCAing people, you idiots. Or they completely change it to where they disallow people in the client itself to actually spectate. Like, I think that's the other only realistic option here.
No, I don't think that's true. I mean, so the way Counter-Strike does it, which is also a Valve title, it has a different set of rules, and it's basically the tournament organizer for an event is able to decide how streaming rights are allocated, but the demos are available and you can spectate in the client, and you can't stream at the same time, but you can still do things. So you can make content afterwards, like educational content, etc. So what I think is possibly an okay approach would be if Valve says for a tournament, as part of their tournament license, you have total exclusive rights from when the game ends for 24 hours, and you can do whatever you want. You can sell the rights for Russia to Maincast or Aruhab. You can intentionally choose to not sell the Portuguese rights if you want. You can choose all these different. You can sell it up as if it were a sporting event, but 24 hours after your event ends, it's public domain. Everyone can go wild with it, and it has to be streamed via Dota TV. So even if these people are streaming it, and they're streaming it to Twitch or to YouTube, you can DMCA it because it's against the rules. So the rules will just say you have an exclusive right for this tournament for 24 hours. And I think that is such a reasonable compromise. Anyone who wants to make educational videos can just do so, but they can't do it within 24 hours is the arbitrary time. It could be 12 hours, it could be any amount of time. And this is what happens in traditional sports. A lot of traditional sports do this.
Yeah, again, making that comparison, sure, they sell broadcasting rights for a reason, but okay, so
no, I'm talking about live. I'm talking about live versus not live. So whenever there's a big sporting event in certain countries, like South Africa is a good example, there'll be like a cable version, like Super Sports is the South African version, and you can watch all the games live as they're happening. But 3 hours later or 4 hours later, they'll start a run on like free to air TV, where you can start watching the cricket or the rugby delayed or the Olympics delayed.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. That is interesting compromise, I guess, as you put it. But at the same time, I don't even know if that's a compromise really, because yes, you're talking about content creators of like educational videos, etc., which would be nice. But let's be honest, the people that would affect the most, be pissed off the most, are your grants, your bulldogs, and that doesn't help them, right? They're not going to cast the match 24 hours later after the fact the results are out. So,
but remember, Breaky, it doesn't matter what they're streaming; they get the same amount of views. So shouldn't affect them.
Yeah, fair enough. All right. BSJ, you've been quiet for a while. Any questions yourself for Noxville or anything to add?
I guess my question would be that I agree for big streamers, it's a problem. I don't think exceptions can necessarily be made. Like, I don't think you can say like, hey, if you have more than this many viewers, you can't stream it or whatever. That obviously wouldn't work. But I do think, like, I'm not saying I disagree necessarily. What I am saying is that I see this situation as like, if tournaments have like this exclusive right, how do like new casters come up? Like, is it just you think that doing this content a day later and like trying to get noticed on YouTube or something could work? Like, I just think there has to be some other answer. Do you know what I mean? Like, there has to be some other option for new content creators to be able to accrue a following of some sort. Because I'm not saying that it would be good for the scene to leave as is. I totally like hear Kyle's argument, and I hear that like I know tournament organizers don't make money. Like I've been in, after you go to enough tournaments and stuff, you kind of like hear behind the scenes discussions and stuff. I obviously want nothing more, just kind of like Kyle in the sense that like I want the Dota scene to stay alive. I think it's a beautiful thing in general. And I think aspects like this can be amazing. Like they can be great for the scene. The fact that anyone can broadcast anything. But I personally do have an issue. Like yesterday, I was watching, or I just tuned on Twitch for a second, and I saw the charity stream or whatever, and I saw the mainstream had 20,000 views and Gork had 17. And like to me,
they were actually official partners of the events. Bulldog and Gork, and I think they sponsored all the money they
Oh,
accrued during
really?
Yeah, so
That's
technically,
different then. I didn't actually know that. For me, I was just like, holy shit, this event's like getting robbed. That's what I thought. Okay. It's for me, it's like, I don't actually have a problem with the big streamers, right? Like I want to be clear when I call out a big streamer, it's like, the only reason I'm mentioning them specifically is because they are a big streamer. Like, for me, back when I was asked about this, I was actually somebody that asked about the decision originally. My argument was like, I'm stealing 200 viewers, and I'm just trying, like, when I say stealing, like, I'm taking 200 viewers from the stream, and they just want to watch me for my educational content, and it's my only way to get it out there. And I really don't think I would have been able to get that content out there like a day later. Nobody's going to watch it. Like, that's what I've
seen quite a lot of, like, I think more recently I've seen a huge amount of content which is just not live, and it's still really good quality. Like Slash's Way was always after the fact. There's what's his name from, I've forgotten his name, from Brazil. He's like a Bowie.
Yeah, Bowie.
He makes educational videos. After there's the Immortal Faith guy who does like summary videos, and he takes them through, and by delaying it by a certain period of time doesn't mean that you can't even prepare. It just means that you could prepare during that time and edit your content so that when your content goes out, it's being viewed and competing with the other content that is all delayed. Or you could get permission from, for example, if you wanted to do an educational stream, you could also just speak to the organizer and you say, hey, I've only got 200 things, and it's their decision. Otherwise, they say, nah, you have to pay us money, or nah, we don't want you. You just say, okay, cool. And then 12 or 24 hours later, you can just put out your content. I agree. I think there are very few number of casters who got their break through like the basically casting one game, competing with the stream, and going wild. I actually wrote this on Reddit, and 3 people replied, and all 3 of their replies were wrong. The funniest one was Odie Pixel, who'd been casting for like a huge amount of time, and his like breakout game was that 3.5-hour game, which he was like the official caster with Purge for. So yeah, I think people have kind of got like what's the word called, where you like intentionally like remember the wrong. It's like the Mandela effect.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, there's this like Mandela effect, which is like the like a shared belief that Mandela died in completely the wrong year, and it's like an international phenomenon. So yeah, like people just have this like complete distorted memory of how things happened in the past. I think it's very rare, and I think almost always the person just carries on grinding until they make it, and they become the official coverage. And there's lots of tournaments where there's room for official coverage. Like D-Cop is an example. He just started grinding Chinese games. No one was casting him English. He said, I'll do this. No worries. And if there were more people, they would divvy the games up, and it would be like, there's always routes to getting somewhere, and adding a small barrier like this, I think, also protects the scene so that it'll be there by the time you've ground your way to the top.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I at the end of the day, if they want to revert it and change it back, I'm not gonna be super upset about it. I think it's a cool thing to have in the scene, but I also think it's not cool if it's gonna kill the scene. Like or even potentially, like if it could have a potential negative effect, which all the things you've presented, all the things I read in like Kyle's article and stuff, like it seems reasonable, like it's reasonable to me. And I think the big deal about it is the people that are benefiting for the most part from being allowed to stream the games, they just don't have to. I think that's really the big emphasis that I heard from your argument, is like they'll get that many viewers doing whatever the hell they want, like it doesn't matter. So it's not like it's their only option. I don't think there's a single person out there that watches games live and makes a living off of it. You know what I mean? Like that's like their sole purpose. So for me,
Grant,
like, well, he mainly makes it from casting pubs. Like he actually is just watching pubs.
Yeah,
like
I thought Grant made his money from making stats quizzes on Reddit.
Yeah,
a lot of different ways.
That's a reasonable theory as well, but no, I
mean, it could also, every tournament is also totally free to just like bring on these big streamers. So if they want to make it like collaborative, they can enable certain options within Twitch to make it like, squattable or whatever, and you can like everyone can just co-stream the tournament. If they want to do that, that's up to them. No one really does that at the moment. It's just big streamers who are making like literally huge amounts of money, like not like pocket change, like huge amounts of money, are viewing it as just an easy way to I'm not going to say 40%, but just maybe get more viewers or cast something that they're going to be more YouTube videos and highlights about because it's a tournament game and it's being cast by a celebrity. That makes it like, that is ultimately what some people's argument boils down to is if I'm watching Dota and I can watch someone like Kyle and BSJ do some commentary, or I can watch Ja Rule and Snoop Dogg, I'm going to take Ja Rule and Snoop Dogg. And that's like, you're never ever going to be able to.
What are you trying to say here? No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I have to ask what Ja Rule has to say about this. But yeah, like, there's no one that you're going to, within the Dota world, that you'll be able to put up that will beat Ja Rule and Snoop Dogg. But that doesn't mean that Ja Rule and Snoop Dogg should like swoop in and do this. So, yeah.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah, it's and as somebody's even bringing up the TO should just invite them to the event. I mean, that's the money that they would cost to get them to the event. I'm sure the ask would be pretty damn high for good reason, and so then that's a whole nother bag of worms. And are you really getting then enough viewers in return, enough viewership, whatever? That's something to look at too. But to your point, Noxville, that you made, and I 100% agree, is that you don't need to do that. Even just collaborate with them online and be like, all right, we know that you're gonna come to our game. We'll even pay you this much to at least put the sponsors on your stream during it, or something along those lines, to make sure at least there's some working relationship with them. But I can't say this for sure, but it feels like instead a lot of the time, kind of like this WePlay situation, the TOs are just they're like busy being angry at them rather than trying to actually make the best of the situation and figure something out. Is I think the biggest conclusion to make. So
yeah.
Anyways, we've been going on about this topic for a while, so I think it is time to wind it down. But Noxville, really do appreciate having you on, man. Definitely some good conversation. We'd love to have you on again in the future if you want. If another big drama comes
don't tell
up
us now, just in case it's a no.
No, it's just be nice.
Let you know via Discord later.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. I know what that means. Noxville, any shout outs before we let you go though?
No, just shout out to all the wonderful people in the Dota 2 community. And best of luck for your birthday in 2 weeks, BSJ.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so Noxville joining us. Thanks again for joining us. We'll catch you around, man.
Cool. Cheers.
All right, so we do have something else to go over before we officially wrap up the show for today. Let me make sure it actually looks good. Before I go back to the main screen, boom, good enough. There we go. All right. So that was Noxville again joining us. Definitely, he's just one of those guys, kind of that behind the scenes that's always good to talk about. He's been following Dota 2 for a long time, and certainly has a lot of connections as well. So good to get his input on a couple of these hot topics as of late, of course, and what's going on in the Dota 2 world. But that does lead us into our final segment, essentially, to discuss. There's currently the Dota Pit is actually going on for European region. Let me actually pull it up right here. The European/CIS region is a $150,000 prize pool, so it does involve 10 teams, including top dogs like OG, VP, Team Secret, etc. It started up. It's actually going to be day number 4 of the group stages next week. There's 5 days total, and then it goes into a double elimination bracket. Point is, that'll lead us into our Midnite segment. We're going to talk about some odds here and give our take on how things are looking when it comes to set odds. So our OGA Dota Pit 2020 predictions are brought to you by Midnite.com. If you're from the UK, then remember to sign up with the code Wombo to get €20 in credits. or 20 pounds, in credits when you bet 20 pounds on Dota 2 and support the show. And before we give... Exactly. Well, yeah. It's funny to say. Before we get into the actual segment, here's this commercial for you guys. Check it out, and then we'll get into it. All right, there we go. So again, midnite.com, check it out. We got 4 matches that are set to happen tomorrow, some pretty good ones. Kicking it off will be Hellraisers versus Viking.gg. It does have the odds favoring Hellraisers, 1.68 for Hellraisers to 2.06 for Viking.gg. So, fairly close, really. Again, the favors being Hellraisers right there. Those odds sounding pretty good to you as far as what you'd be looking at there?
I honestly haven't seen too much Hellraisers. I watched a bit of them in the ESL 1 tournament, but I thought Viking GG looked pretty solid. So all things considered, I would feel like this would be a really even series. So it's interesting to me that it's a bit favored for Hellraisers. If I had to go before like the draft or anything, I'd probably lean towards my money on Viking GG there. But obviously liability things,
Of course, we're not saying go 100% to it. Take that as you will. We're giving our opinion, and certainly you can do with that as you wish. I'm a little bit on the opposite side. I'm not surprised to see Hellraisers necessarily the favorites there. Again, it is very close. Hellraisers is coming off a decent WePlay event. They did finish 5-1 in their groups, and they were actually the top dogs in the CIS region going into the playoffs before their disappointing performance in the playoffs. So there is reason to believe that they could bounce back from that. But at the same time, I am actually with you in terms of betting man. I like the odds actually for Viking.gg. So I think they're pretty good to go with them. Certainly a victory could come out there for them. So all right, that goes to our next match. This is a pretty big one. OG versus Alliance. OG is 1.62 to Alliance's 2.16. Of course, it's noteworthy. Keeping in mind, OG, they are playing with Samil for North America, dealing with the latency right there. But with that in mind, OG is still a favorite, maybe a little bit close, but what do you think?
I think that one's pretty accurate. I would have a tough time making a call based on those odds, like what team I would prefer to bet on. Honestly, I think OG's, despite all the handicaps they're playing with, is just the better team, but I also think Alliance, because they are like a newer roster with a newer captain, that their results are relatively high variance. So I don't necessarily like putting my money on either side of those type of series where I'm like, I feel like the potential of OG is heavily swayed upon the handicaps. And I feel like, Alliance on a really good day can look unstoppable, and on a really bad day kind of just looks kind of meh. So it's hard to say for me personally.
Alliance, a team that's obviously went through some roster changes more recently, but starting to find a groove a little bit, you'd figure. I think this is potentially an event where start shining through. So maybe I'm just liking betting on the underdog so far in this segment, but I actually like the odds for that favorite Alliance in this.
Bias caster or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, if you want to call that, I'll take it. But we'll see. We'll see what happens tomorrow, and when I happen to be right there. Leads us into the next one. Speaking of bias caster, Team Liquid versus Virtus Pro is our next matchup. So now Liquid is pretty good favor. They're 1.57 to 2.26. So that means I'm definitely going VP. No, it's Liquid the favor here. This is our biggest gap so far, I guess you could say, that we have. Man, isn't that something that we're talking about? Liquid's a decent favorite against Virtus Pro right now. What's happening, man?
I'm confused a bit by that too. I obviously saw VP just kind of stomp through a lot of the ESL 1 leagues, so that's kind of interesting to me. I haven't kept up with 100% of the games, but just to see that overall favoritism towards Team Liquid now, I guess VP just kind of shit the bed in the Pushka League. Like, obviously I saw their finish wasn't ideal, but that's pretty heavily favored towards one side or the other. And I also think Team Liquid has kind of given me the Alliance vibes, where sometimes they look really solid. They're obviously more of a secured concrete team and everything, but I'd probably take Virtus Pro at those odds.
Yeah, Virtus Pro, they're 0-4 so far. They're 0-2 in series in this group stages, but Liquid's 1-2.
So they're gonna make a comeback. That's what I mean. Like neither team. Like what I mean by my prediction is it's not like I think Virtus Pro is like unstoppable or anything. It's just like I don't think Team Liquid's like decisively way better.
Trust me, I agree.
Yeah, so that's where I'm coming from. Usually when I think that way, I'll always go for the team that gives me better chances or better odds,
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'm going to say Team Liquid still.
Bias caster.
VP just, again, that 0-4 record. Now, granted, it was against Secret and then NIP. Of course, especially Secret, not surprised there. NIP, a solid team too, but Liquid, they went on a little bit of a downhill later on the week, and now it's time to go back uphill. So that's my logic, which is horrible logic, so you should not be listening to me in terms of actually putting the bet down. But let's go Liquid for that one. Then that leads us to the final match for tomorrow for the Dota Pit event. That's going to be Team Secret versus Team Spirit, and as you may guess, it is, let's just say it's heavily favored for Team Secret. For every dollar you put on, you can get $1.05 for Team Secret. So 1.05 for Team Secret, and then 7.60 for Team Spirit. That's potential to make some money there, but let's be honest, the chances of Team Spirit winning is pretty much nothing. I'm definitely going with Secret in this one.
If I had $1, I'd probably put it on Team Spirit because I don't care about losing that $1, and I'd be excited about 760. But if I had like $100, I'd probably put it on Team Secret, and for the most part, accept my free $5. So that's kind of how I look at these kind of bets. I also don't like betting on these series because like the payoff for betting against like the favorite is like so high risk, and the bet for paying for the payoff for the favorites like just nothing. So it's kind of how I look at it.
Interesting here. Noxville's actually given his input in chat as we're doing this here. He's what did he say? He said for the first one, it's a Hellraisers slightly. He's favoring OG in the Alliance series. He likes that. He got VP in against Liquid, and then he says he's favoring Pupper in the Secret versus Spirit matchup there, aka Puppy Team Secret. So
Pupper,
good old Puppers. He can call him Pupper. Apparently, he has a good relationship with them. All right, there you go. Again, midnite.com. Check it out, guys. That is gonna start wrapping it up for our show, though. A good hour or so of content. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Before we start wrapping up, one more reminder, guys, hit that follow button, hit that sub button, even on the channel. It does help support us, as well as the other podcasts that are under this Predictions Esports umbrella. So we do appreciate any and all support we can get. But BSJ, as always, anything else?
Nope, I'm good for me.
All right. Noxville, big shout out to Noxville for joining us once. I don't know why I'm doing the peace sign, but thank you for joining us, Noxville, on the podcast. Really do appreciate it, and definitely would love to have him on once again in the future, if he wants, of course. But that is going to do it for this week. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in, whether it's live or on any podcast audio platform that you're listening to. Really do appreciate it. Once again, I was breakycpk, joined by BSJ. We will see you guys next week on the Wombo Combo podcast. Until then, have a good night.